Welcome, everybody, to the Mastermind Mastery, the ultimate podcast for entrepreneurs, business owners, and anyone interested in learning from the top minds in business. Today, we are joined by Zach Wright. Zach Wright is an accomplished business professional with a strong background in strategy and operations. He holds an MBA and undergrad in org psychology, which he leveraged to deliver results-driven solutions to his clients. And as founder of iMEO Company, a strategy and operations consulting firm, Zach is responsible for developing and executing business strategies that drive growth and profitability. He is skilled in identifying operational inefficiencies and implementing effective solutions to streamline processes and enhance productivity. Under his leadership, iMEO Company has seen significant growth and expanded its reach into new markets. Zach is a collaborative leader who is passionate about empowering teams to achieve their goals. He believes in a hands-on approach to management and is dedicated to developing strong relationships with his clients and colleagues. His expertise, experience, and dedication make him a valuable asset to any organization that decides to work with iMEO. I am really excited to have this conversation with you, and it's an honor to have you on as a guest, Zach.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Thomas. I'm excited to be here and talk to you.
So do you mind just giving everyone a brief background about your professional career? You know, how did you start? How has your career arc evolved over the years? And how did you get into the business that you're doing now?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start back in college a little bit because it took me 8 years to graduate my undergrad. So I went 4 years. The only reason that I got into college was because I played baseball. And so I got a scholarship to go to Belmont Abbey College. Whenever I received that scholarship, I was going to college to be a history teacher. Luckily, I didn't go that route. No offense to any history teachers out there. I actually have a history teacher that changed my life. So shout out to them. But a reason that I wanted to start there is because after 4 years, I dropped out, didn't get my degree. I worked as a roofer for 2 years in a factory. I went back to school. I dropped out again. I started working as an operating room assistant in the operating room and also drug testing people as another job. And then I finally went back and finished my degree. But I say that story because during the last semester at Belmont Abbey College, I was able to run across positive psychology and organizational psychology. And so that drove me into having an idea that I wanted to work in human resources. And at the time, I didn't have any experience. I mean, I had experience as a roofer and an operating room assistant. So that didn't really go that far in corporate environment. So I had to get one of those entry-level positions where you needed 2 years before you can really get in there. But I looked around and I found staffing and I found IT staffing. So I started working at a company who provided recruitment and staffing services to large organizations like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, so on and so forth. And so whenever I was there, I was learning the ropes, and over time, I was able to climb the corporate ladder. Over time, I had top performing quarters. I got promoted to team lead, where I was co-managing 19 recruiters and specifically managing 5 direct reports. From there, I experienced a micromanager who made me question what I was doing, even though I was making my bonuses. I was becoming a employee of the month several times. And after 6 months of just scrutinizing managerial tactics delivered to me, I decided to move on. I went into management consulting for business process analysis, where I worked as a consultant in the firm TIAA, where I was working with executives on building out their processes, all that kind of stuff. I didn't last there that long because it wasn't the type of company that I wanted to work for. I had bigger aspirations than they were willing to give to me, maybe naively. But from there, I started working at a reg tech startup company based out of Charlotte, North Carolina. I was operations analyst, and then I got quickly promoted to build out the program management office lead, or the PMO function of that organization. Unfortunately, 2 days before Christmas, I was laid off, and that was in 2020, and I had to figure out the next steps. Right, it was during the pandemic, and luckily, everything happens for a reason, right? Luckily, I was able to run across Kumu, QUMU, their enterprise video solution. And I met my now mentor and partner in business, Alex Couture, and I was brought on as strategy staff executive, where I was handling the OKR program, looking at strategic initiatives for in organic growth and organic growth, so mergers and acquisitions. We had a sales leadership shift, and they needed somebody to come in and lead the sales team. So my mentor, Alex, took that over, and then I became director of sales operations and sales engineering. And recently, Kumu was acquired by InChouse. And as a result of that, now I'm all in on my company, iMEO, improving management, employees, and organizations. But through that journey, I've learned strategy and operations to, as you mentioned in the intro, really help companies identify their inefficiencies in their systems and help them overcome those challenges.
Wow, it's quite the journey. So really quick before we dive more into that, what did you play in baseball? What position?
Yeah, so I was a pitcher. I didn't play that much though, so I can't lie. My freshman year, I did a red shirt, and then my sophomore year, I had surgery on my left arm, which I was a lefty pitcher, and so that took me out that year. And then my junior year, I actually got some playing time, but I had to come back on the junior varsity team, and then get to the actual varsity team. I don't know if they call them that in college. It's been a while, but yeah, I really didn't play that much. So I ended up quitting, and maybe we can talk about that, but it was actually a good thing, because then I had to force myself to work and make some money.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big baseball. I played baseball all the way through school. So I was just curious.
What position were you?
So I went back and forth. I was first base, shortstop, and I did some pitching, and also catcher as well.
Oh, nice. Cool.
So it's all over the place. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple things that you mentioned that I really want to dive into. One of them is being the OKRs. And correct me if I'm wrong, OKR is objective key results. Is that right?
Objectives and key results. Yeah.
And key results. Okay. So I've been hearing that a lot. I'm not very familiar. I don't fully understand what that is. I kind of have like a vague understanding, but if you're okay with sharing, like what is OKR and how do you use that to improve your business?
Yeah, so the way that I describe it, objectives and key results, or OKRs, is really a way to manage your organization in a holistic view. So if you think about KPIs or key performance indicators, a lot of people will confuse those two and say, okay, well, because we have an OKR program at iMEO, and whenever we tell people that, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of OKRs. They're like KPIs. And I have to correct them because I can't just let it go, because KPIs are individualistic. They're siloed. So they could be to that one specific department. They could be to that one specific salesperson, that one specific whatever. But it's not a combination of the company, where OKRs are going to stop at or start at the top and then go all the way to the bottom. And what I mean by that is you're going to identify your company's objectives, which is the what are you trying to accomplish as a company? And then you're going to identify your key results, which is the how will you achieve this goal? And so whenever you identify your company's goals, then the next level down, typically the executive leadership team, they're going to take the key results from the company and then create their own objectives and then create their key results from there. And then the next level down will create theirs from the executive team's objectives or goals. And so this is called cascading. And so what that means is that every single goal is connected to the company goal. And so if we think about this from an employee engagement perspective, whenever an employee helps create their own goals, they feel more empowered to achieve those. And they understand that because it provides meaningfulness, knowing that they can see as they accomplish their goals, it's helping their manager accomplish their goals. And then you keep going up. And then ultimately that employee can say, I'm helping the company achieve its vision. So that's the difference between OKRs and KPIs. And to me, it's the best type of goal setting framework and strategy execution framework that you can leverage in a company at this stage.
Okay, very well said. So an example, could you maybe give us an example of what an OKR for a company is?
Yeah, so there's a book out there called Measure What Matters. It's by John Doerr, and it breaks down the framework of OKRs. And he's the one who actually used them at Intel the first time and then brought them into Google. But I say that as a resource for the audience if they want to dig in deeper on this and to pull out this specific example. So we were speaking about sports. He uses a football metaphor. So the head coach is going to be the top of the organization, right? And so the head coach's ultimate goal is to win the championship. And so that's the objective. It's that simple. Win the championship. And now his goal is to define how they're going to do that. And the example that comes to mind is you have your offensive line coach, you have your specialty coach, and then you have your defensive coach. And so each one of those key results is going to be something like, we want to rush 300 yards per game. We want to, that's going to be obviously the offensive coach. The defensive coaches, we want to stop teams from scoring more than 6 points per game. And then the specialty team is, we want to return the kickoff an average of 30 yards per kickoff, right? So that's setting up the offensive coach to take that key result and then turn it into their objective. So for example, the head coach has win the championship game. Then he has the key result for the offensive line to say, we want to rush 300 yards. And so that key result turns into the offensive coach's objective. So now the offensive coach objective is, we want to rush 300 yards per game. And then he creates his own key results underneath that. And then that becomes the offensive line's key results on how they're going to accomplish this goal. If they accomplish that goal, then ultimately they'll win the championship. So hopefully I know it's tough to visualize it whenever speaking about it, but hopefully that answers and gives an example.
Yeah, no, that definitely that helps a lot, because I've heard a lot of people speaking about OKRs, and it's just like a word or a term that's kind of floated around in some of the circles I'm in. I've never really fully understand it as much as I do now. So thank you for sharing that with us. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, you mentioned that you identify inefficiencies in the different companies that you're consulting with, or the clients that you're working with. What do you see? Well, two questions. One, how do you identify the inefficiencies? What is your process in evaluating that and then identifying? And what do you see as the most common type of inefficiencies that are fairly frequent, if you will, if there are any?
Yeah. So the first question I'll answer here is, we always go into the organization and we conduct a discovery. So, or evaluate the current situation. And what we're doing there is we're trying to understand, what is the organization experiencing and why are they looking to improve this or get to point A to point B. So for example, the first step is to evaluate the situation. And so what we're asking is, okay, what is your current situation? And we get them to describe that. Then we say, what is your future state? What do you want to, or where do you want to be at? And then we identify those gaps from the current state to future state. And then that's kind of where we specialize in, is like, okay, we can create a strategy to help you go from A to B. And then we can also help you achieve that through operations. And so we identify the situation, we build the strategy, we implement the strategy, we measure the results, and then we make sure that the customer or the client is satisfied with what we provided and what they have set up. And one thing that we take it a step further is we make sure that they're able to take this on themselves without it going to waste once we leave, right? So a lot of consultants, they'll come in, they want to get the paycheck, they want to leave. We want to, yeah, obviously we want to get paid, we're a business, but we want to make sure that this is a long lasting, sustainable change to improve their operations. To the second point, or the second question is, what is the thing that we typically see? It is a range of things, but I would say that it kind of boils down to, I don't know if it's necessarily founders or leaders of the line of business, but they don't take the time to really analyze these or ask the right questions to identify the gaps. And then in addition to that, they don't take the time to fix it, right? So I think in a sense, some managers and leaders like chaos because it makes them feel like they're doing more. And what we do is we eliminate that chaos, or we try to reduce it as much as possible. And what you'll find is a lot of people, especially nowadays where people are working remotely, there are tons of tools out there. And so you have so many tools that you're actually being inefficient versus efficient, because you're going through tabs, you're searching on SharePoint, you're searching on Google Workspaces to find the document, you find the wrong document, you have to reach out to this person to get the right document. So basically what we do is we help structure the organization where you become more efficient through systems, through strategies, and through processes. So to answer the question shortly is, they don't take the time to ask the right questions, and then they don't take the time to fix those things because they feel like being chaotic and busy is better than being efficient and structured.
Yeah, I've heard that there's some people who are just they're accustomed to chaos. So when there's not chaos, they just start freaking out and they just create it because they're so accustomed to it. So it's very interesting you mentioned that. And what are the I guess your ideal clients? What are the most optimal people that you like working with, your ICP, in other words?
Yeah, so we really like working with businesses who are trying to make an impact in the world. They might have this lofty goal, this big vision that everybody thinks they're crazy. We love those people because we're crazy ourselves. In addition to that, we like working with online businesses. So you can think about like a coach who is trying to set up something for themselves. So it could be a solopreneur or a small business, but we really like working with those online businesses because that's where we really specialize in it. So whenever it comes to like logistics or manufacturing, we're not your people. Whenever it comes to putting in systems, automation, workflows to help you buy back time and become more efficient, that's where we really specialize in. So I mentioned online coaches, but it could also be a tech startup. We like working with tech startup people, and fresh people, like new people to the game, or people who don't necessarily have the systems. We actually are the people who like the chaos because we like the chaos to turn it into structure. So we don't like the chaos forever, but we like to come into companies who have a little bit of chaoticness, and then we make it better by doing what we do there.
Yeah. So you'll consult with any size company, from a new startup to an established company that's, doing 100 million ARR.
Yeah, so we try to limit it on the number of employees. So, I mean, it could be a solopreneur up to around 200 people at the company, because we want to be able to make sure that what we're offering can actually benefit them. Whenever we get into like the 1,000-person companies, you probably want a full-on consultant team that can come in there and do all that kind of stuff. But we're trying to help people who want to become business owners, or who are business owners, tech startup founders. We want to turn their vision into a reality. And that's why we have our ecosystem of services, where we help develop anything from the vision, the mission, the core value, the strategy management, which goes into KPIs and OKRs. And then we help them have the ability of executing all those things through operations.
Got it. Okay. And kind of shifting gears here, a little bit, how do you approach risk taking in your business, and what is the biggest risk that you've ever taken in your career?
So as far as risk taking in my business, what I typically do is we drink our own champagne. So at the beginning of 2023, or actually a little bit before 2023, we developed our new 3-year strategy. And part of that is understanding what our budgets are, understanding the cost benefit analysis of, do we hire these consultants to come in and help us get more leads? Do we choose to support Google Ads on a landing page that leads to our OKR online course? These types of things are thought out before we ever make an action. And what that does is, whenever we're creating the strategy, or whenever we were specifically creating the strategy for iMEO, we were looking at, okay, what did we do in the past 2 years? Okay, what are we trying to do in the next 3 years? Then we come up with a tons of list of objectives, but then we take those objectives and we prioritize them down into 3 to 5 objectives for the entire year. And so that tells us and sets the direction for what we're trying to accomplish as a company. And based off of that, we build what we call an operating model and KPI tracker. And so we just use a simple Excel to do that, but we're tracking our marketing KPIs. We're tracking our sales KPIs as far as like pipeline, opportunities closed, number of meetings that are coming in a quarter, different things like that. So we break it down, and we're very logical on our strategy and turning it into the operating model on basically helping us make those decisions before they ever come to light. So that's how we kind of mitigate risk. We think about it before, and then we think about it as we're doing, based off of what we did before. And then for the biggest risk that I've taken for the company, or in my personal career, is, it might be right now, honestly, because right now I have iMEO company. We're definitely full-fledged and we're full running. But I'm working on building my own software company. And so as now, just before this podcast episode, I got the invoice to sign and kick off the project. So This is the biggest investment that
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited. But that's probably the biggest thing, because I'm pulling money from a large amount of money from my account and putting it into an idea that I hope will change the way of the modern working world. Like I said, we like people who have big visions. We're one of those people. So I'm investing tens of thousands of dollars into this software, and it could fail. That's the biggest risk that I've taken, but I think that I'm taking it at the right time of the industry and of my career. So scary, but exciting.
Yeah. Well, it's very bold. And like we were saying at the beginning, you got to take big risks to get rewards. So
Exactly.
there you go. So last question, in spite of time, before we wrap up, could you share some advice for maybe some aspiring business leaders, particularly those who are just starting out in their careers or on their entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Start. Because and the reason I say that, I'll add some context to it, is whenever I started iMEO, and just, I don't know if I've said it, but iMEO stands for Improving Management, Employees, and Organizations. And so whenever I started iMEO, I started off as a life coach, right? Because I was thinking about my experience, what I could offer. At the time, I wasn't as confident as I am now. And I thought about, okay, what is a shift that I've done in my life, and how can I offer that to people? And so, as the story that I told, it took me 8 years to graduate from my undergrad. I made a shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So whenever I started iMEO, I was wanting to coach people on how to go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. But I didn't find that fascinating. I wasn't as passionate as I thought about that. So then I quickly changed to broad business coaching. And I say broad business coaching is because I didn't have a specific program that we were offering to clients who came in. So I wasn't able to say, hey, if you come work with iMEO, you'll go from A to B, and this is your transformation. And here's some other people who have done that. So from there, I chose to niche down and focus solely on OKRs. So I mentioned before 2023, we looked at our old strategy. Our old strategy was to transition from broad business coaching to be a world-class OKR program that offered education, implementation, and how to embed OKRs into your organization. We got that down. And then now we're at the point where we have our ecosystem of services where we stretch beyond OKRs, and we're a one-stop shop consulting firm that can help any business from inception to operations. And so the reason that I tell that story is if I started now, I would have had to go through all those stages to figure out what I actually want to do right now, and then eventually turn that into a software company. And so like, just start, but don't start ignorantly. Like, keep your job. If you still have a job, like, keep your job, keep that income until you really realize what you want to do. Right? A lot of people will jump the gun. They'll say, hey, I want to be a coach, and then they don't have any plan. And I think that's a mistake, right? Because you can use that income, take a percentage of that, fund your business, and really see if people are interested before you make that mistake of investing all your money in there. So that's what I would say is start, be intelligent about it, keep your job if you have one until you're ready to take that leap.
Okay, well, Zach, it was an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate your time today. Where can our listeners follow you online or learn more about you and your company and what you're doing?
Yeah, so you can find us on the website. It's imeocompany.com. We have YouTube at iMEO Company. We have LinkedIn at iMEO Company. On Instagram, I'm at Zach A. Wright. We have a podcast ourselves called Chasing Success. Just type in Chasing Success podcast, Zach Wright. You should be able to find it. And then we have a blog called The Writing Blog, which is the Wright, WRIGHT, like my last name, blog.com.
All right. Thank you again, Zach. And thank you everyone for listening into this episode.
Thank you.